Alright guys, how are you doing? I hope all's well with you in this wacky, crazy world that we find ourselves in 2025. Yeah, I was just thinking about the future last night, as I tend to do a lot of these days. And I was just kind of pondering on, I wonder what it will be like a few decades from now. I wonder what the world's going to be like when I'm an old man. I wonder what the world's going to be like after I'm gone. Yesterday I was thinking also about how we see ourselves as the very best of the best of the best of civilization and humanity and technology and things like that. It was just, I don't know, it was just something that kind of was just something on my mind for some reason. And yeah, I don't know, I was just having a bit of a strange day yesterday with regards to kind of thinking about sort of how so many things are sort of relative to us, and our relationship to the past, how we view the past, how generations before us kind of lived in some ways, actually many ways similar to ourselves. Except the only difference is really is that it's a change in the society, a change in culture. But in many ways, humanity's really kind of like the same in many respects as it's always been. It's just that different generations bring a slightly new edge to things. There's a kind of a new identity of sorts that comes forward. But essentially the basic primitive kind of parts of humanity are always been there. They were there 30 years ago, they were there 50 years ago, 100 years ago, hundreds of years ago, but they were just expressed in different ways based on the constructs, the limitations of that time. But essentially, the youth have always been the youth for the most part. Adults have always been adults. There's always been tensions and division and controversial parts of society and culture, but also society and culture is always changing, just as what we consider our civilization today has always changed. And it will be the same in the future. The world of the 2060s will be massively different to the world of our own. I would imagine it would be. Just as, the world of the 22nd century will be incredibly different to our own. And I was just kind of thinking about the potential of, where are we going as a society now? Where are we heading as this umbrella term, humanity? Where have we been? Where are we now? Where are we going? And it was just sort of all bundled into one thing yesterday. I was just kind of pondering on it all for some reason. And I suppose I think some of it came down to seeing some stuff. There's a channel on YouTube called Carl Venon, I think his name is. And he touches on a lot of the kind of more sort of what seems to be kind of an ever increasingly dystopian reality, of automation, AI, and just society just kind of seemingly becoming less and less pleasant, enjoyable. Values, kind of just things that we kind of took for granted, I think, growing up. In many respects, they just seem to be declining. Things seem to be getting worse, I think. Nothing really feels the same anymore compared to what it did 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Nothing, everything's changed. Everything's pretty much declined. And there's just no sense of quality to things anymore, I don't think, for the most part. It just feels like everything's just been in a constant, just decades-long phase of deterioration, in my opinion. I don't know if anybody else thinks the same way, feels like that, but yeah, I don't know, it's just, the world's definitely not, I don't think it's getting better in many ways. Another thing I was thinking about yesterday was have we been like primed for AI? Like, have we been deliberate? It's like, as all of the internet and all of the social media, the rise of social media, the smartphones, all of the engagement, likes and clicks and dopamine stuff that's associated with all this stuff. Have we been like in a like 30-year long engineering program of sorts to kind of like get us ready for post-human transition kind of thing? I don't know if that makes any sense, but I do feel that we are heading towards that era, really. Whether that, I don't know whether it'll happen in my lifetime, given that I'm in my mid-30s now, so I'm probably going to live to maybe the 2070s, maybe 2080s, possibly. If I don't know, maybe in towards the end of the century. Possibly. I doubt it, but who knows? But I definitely think we are heading towards more and more of a dystopian, authoritarian, probably more digital authoritarian way of life. And I say that because we've seen this push now for digital ID in the UK, which I think will be an absolute it's just a recipe for disaster, really. It's a really, really ill thought out implement. It should not be something that becomes a reality, in my opinion. I really think that we need to push back against that. But I also think we need to be increasingly cautious with regards to the use of AI, where that's likely heading towards. Obviously, the impacts that are going to come from automation. More and more people over the coming decades are going to start losing their jobs to AI and automation. But I think as well, at the same time, there's just going to be so many impacts on the economy with regards to climate change, which will obviously impact agriculture and obviously supply chains, and I think a lot of people are going to be out of work in the next 30 to 50 years. We're going to see a huge amount of people being unemployed or in some kind of, I'm sure I don't, obviously a lot of people will end up jumping on the bandwagon of being employed with AI or automation somewhere, ironically. But I think that, those will be the smarter types, more intellectual types, the more, be a certain type of person, I think, that ends up going into those kind of areas. And I think for the rest, I really do fear that we're heading towards a system of, and I know I'm not saying anything new here, but I do feel that we are probably heading towards some kind of a universal basic income kind of a world, probably of some sort, but some kind of a social credit system, probably. And I also do worry that one of my biggest concerns in the coming decades, really, is the potential of, more pandemics. And I was thinking about this last night, are we heading towards a place where pandemics are going to become more common? Are they going to be deliberately put out there to try and depopulate, and to try and just save already massively overstretched resources, and with the impacts on the economy and agriculture, there's going to be less over time. There's going to be less resources, less food. So I think at some point, it seems to me anyway, as much as I hate to say it, that we're probably heading towards a kind of culling, depopulation kind of era, I reckon. Whether that's direct or indirect, I don't know, but I do fear that's probably the most likely outcome, because if climate change, well, whether it's natural or man-made, whatever you want to call it, whatever you think about it, whether if it's true that climate change does result in the end in a world that's just so heavily bombarded by droughts and flooding and a lack of a lack of arable sort of land, and just less and less places where the climate's stable enough to grow things, and obviously then there's going to be, over time, there'll be food shortages, and we'll reach a stage eventually where rationing becomes the norm, and it would make sense by the elites at some point, whoever that might be at that time. Whether that's some kind of like evolved state of globalism, capitalism, I don't know exactly what system will be in place a few decades from now. Who can possibly know something like that? But let's just say it's hyper-globalism of some sort. It's hyper-capitalism. It's obviously that it's going to be a case of we're going to end up in a position where we're going to be fighting over resources again. There's no doubt about that, man. There's just no doubt about it. We're going to end up with countries at each other's throats for the last remaining resources that we, unless of course we start heading towards better alternative ways of living. But I certainly can't see that happening anytime soon. Maybe within a century, maybe within two, I don't know. But I don't think during my lifetime, I don't think we're going to see the end of globalism or capitalism. I think it's just going to increase more and more as time goes on. But there will certainly become more and more. There'll certainly be an increasing backlash against it. I don't know. I don't want to like come across as being pessimistic, but I just don't see. I really don't think the future. The way I see things at the moment is that I think we're in a place in time now where we still have, potentially anyway, the ability to turn some things around. But I just fear that corruption and greed and selfishness will just result in things being delayed or not happening at all. And it'll take decades before any real tangible change happens, and it might be too late by then. For all I know, it may already be too late. We're seeing more and more people going to jail all the time for hate words on X, and people's platforms being sabotaged, people's YouTube channels being taken down or flagged, or posts on Facebook being banned or whatever, and it's like it never used to be like this. I mean, I've even had it on my YouTube channel of things being flagged under hate speech or some bollocks, and it's just utter nonsense. It's just a bunch of technocratic, bureaucratic wankers on a power trip, just control freak, megalomaniac types that just want to rule the world, and that's my fear, I suppose. I think that's kind of how I see the future, is that it may become dominated by people like that think they're doing the morally right, morally just thing of getting rid of the ills of the world, the ills of the internet. And I just think that I don't know. I just don't really think that we're heading towards a healthy society, in my opinion. We aren't even in a healthy society now, really. I really do believe that we had a little sweet spot overall, I would say, probably from the 60s up until about like the 2010s, maybe sort of the early to mid 2010s. And then I think just since then, I think things have just been getting steadily just gradually just worse, really. Just everything just seems like the world doesn't feel the same anymore. And it's not just because I'm older, although I accept that's probably part of it, because obviously your outlook changes and your maturity changes, so you view things a little bit differently. But it does feel like things have definitely gone in a very sour direction, especially with social media, especially with the rise, the addiction of like the smartphone and just the internet in general. You know, we're on the internet now pretty much 24/7. And I just don't think, and I think we are being used, we're being manipulated, we're being played by these giant tech corporations, you know, these companies that they're out for profits, they're out for control, they're out for steering narratives. You know, they're out to try and play divide and conquer and dominate people using specific narratives. And I fear that AI is either is like that already or is heading towards that. And if it's not, then I think that AI will be used while AI will certainly be used in many ways to save a lot of money, and it will help a lot of people in terms of education, I do fear it will also become a serious violation of privacy, of safety, just violations really of people's sense of privacy and security, because we don't really truly know where our questions, our information we use when we use AI is going. We don't know if it's being used. For all we know, it could some of the things we say on using ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever AI source you use might be being stored somewhere, and for all we know, it could later be used against you. I don't know. Call me paranoid if you want, or a bit of a conspiracy theory nut, but I definitely have concerns over AI and its legitimateness as far as like safety and transparency and honesty, and I just kind of get the feeling that there are hidden motives with AI. I really do. I really do think that it's in the works to be used by those that probably shouldn't really be using it. So my fears, but I'm probably not saying anything that other people haven't said in the past about the fears of things that of the future based on their time. You only have to look for old archive stuff on YouTube or Facebook, and you can find interviews of people talking about the future in the 60s, in the 70s, 80s. It's quite interesting really, because some of them talk about the mass unemployment and the rise of computers, the fear of kind of sort of society and culture being hollowed out. And so I suppose like any generation that's come before us, ours is also concerned with the issues of its present time and with its immediate and sort of mid to long term future ahead of it. But I do seriously worry about where we are heading as a society. I think there are a lot of serious concerns to really take seriously, because how far can capitalism go? Just how far can globalism go in terms of exploiting natural resources before we collapse under the weight of our intense need for constant capital, constant profits, a constant need to keep building and creating and using materials and etc. It's just, how long can we realistically keep up the world that we have today? How long can we realistically keep our electricity on, keep drinkable water flowing through our taps? How long can we realistically keep getting gas and the things that we need to survive? And I don't know. I'm just really worried about. It just seems that we're living in a time where we hear a lot of talk about environmental impacts and the green agenda and a move towards sustainable energy, and yet so much of it doesn't seem to be very adequate. It doesn't seem to be the solution, and also there's sort of renewed talks around, both by Trump in America and obviously UK, probably an upcoming government reform UK, talking about drilling in the North Sea, and while I accept that we should take advantage of our natural resources, there comes a point where the more accessible, easier, more affordable stuff is no longer available because you've taken it all, or most of it. Not to mention the damage to the environment as well, the ecological impact of it all. Let's not forget, it's not like mines and drilling sites and things don't have their impacts on their immediate location, because they do, or so at least potentially they can. So we have to think about that kind of stuff very seriously. But all at the same time, we have millions of people in our respective countries around the world that want to get a shower, want to get a bath, want to plug in their phones, want to go on the internet, want to just live a comfortable, normal life, want to live in a city, want to live in a modern world with modern facilities and amenities and all that. It's like, so I don't know, it's difficult because we do at some point surely have to probably move away from this ever increasing need for natural resources, whether that's oil, gas, natural water supplies, coal, obviously various types of earth metals, etc., rare earth metals. But there will come a point within the next coming decades, because I've read about this stuff, where some of the stuff will become extremely difficult to get, because we've used up all of the easier stuff over the last at least 50 to 100 years. Now we may get another 50 to 100 years, maybe 150 years with regards to things like coal, maybe about 50 years of oil left, probably a few decades, 20, 30 years of some rare earth metals. As far as natural water is concerned, I think it was something like a few decades. Gas is going to be a few decades. So at some point, excuse me, at some point we're going to have to either tap into reserves, even though they might be difficult to get to, expensive, dangerous, or we're going to have to start working. Well, either way, we're going to have to use what we've got to actually create greener energy sources. The irony of it all is it's just off the charts, isn't it? And that's the thing that I think people overlook is, it's all good and well having solar panels and turbines and tidal based sort of energy and things like that, but at the end of the day, it's it's just not enough, is it? It's not adequate enough. It's not at the moment it's not going to provide anywhere near the kinds of energy output that's needed to sustain even small towns and cities across the United Kingdom, let alone bigger places, parts of the US and Russia and China and other parts of the world. It might work in parts of Scandinavia, but in smaller countries, I accept, but again, if you've already got kind of like natural kind of advantages that can already aid you with that, then obviously that you're already ahead of many countries. But if you haven't got that, then it's going to be much harder. So that's really another of my fears. And just when you look around you all the time, you just see so much rubbish. And anytime you buy something and so you use it and you throw all that crap in the bin, it's just like, and it just seems such a waste, such an utter waste of resources just to throw all that stuff in the bin. Granted, a lot of it will probably be burnt and be used to create energy or whatever. So it's not like it's going completely to waste, but in terms of like fueling the economy, fueling modern life, but it's not. I don't think it's. I don't know. I just don't think in and of itself it's necessarily the way that we should be living, really. But we do need at some point to try and move away from plastics and things like that. I think that would be probably a good thing to try and do. There's no point flooding the bloody oceans and seas and rivers and natural water sources with endless garbage and crap and obviously we're going to have to deal with landfills at some point. They're going to have to be reused for something. I would imagine there must be something you could do with them. You've got decades of rubbish piled up. There must be something you could do with it, with that the residue of all of that stuff. And there must be some. There's got to the gases of these places could be used for something. I would imagine. So I'm not saying that the future's completely bleak. I'm just saying I do worry that my concern is that we're not being precautious enough. We're not really taking the concerns, the things that are staring right at us, seriously enough. Whether it's with environmental issues, pollution, biodiversity loss, whether it's with automation, increasing surveillance. I mean, how many CCTV cameras does one city need? Does one area need? I mean, it was as a kid, like you'd see the odd camera here and there, but it's like now it must have doubled or tripled since then. It's just. And also online, like now, there's so much like need for verification, like checking you're a human of virtually everything you ever go on now in some way or other. Just always just that constant ever intrusiveness of things. It's like this. Everything feels very intrusive these days. Like you're always under suspicion all the time. You've always got to prove yourself, prove who you are online these days by everything. Like as if you're somehow up to no good. I don't know. I just feel like the internet's becoming increasingly intrusive, and I feel I feel that we're heading, towards a place where every aspect of your life will be monitored, everything. And I mean, I really genuinely mean that. Like everything you say, everything you do will be monitored. And when you think about it, it's like your social media use, your use of your smartphone, your use of AI if you're using it. Congrats if you're not. It's all just very intrusive in a way. It's like it gives us this. We're told we don't have to use these things. You don't have to use, but you do though, don't you? Because like Google can't answer everything directly for you. People like to save time these days. People like quick fixes, quick information. We are a clicking fingers world now, aren't we? Everything's got to be quick. Everything's got to be instant. We no longer have any patience as a society, as people, I think. We no longer have, I don't really think we have any real true sense of our values or place in the world anymore. Everything's been broken down, everything that we knew when we were growing up for the most part has kind of either completely vanished or it's been so badly damaged that people question everything these days. People no longer seem to believe in anything for the most part. All we see now is just pure individualism. Even here in Thailand, like what is supposed to be a collectivist society, it doesn't always feel like that. I mean, it certainly feels more here than it does back in the UK. I admit, but still, there's a lot of individuality here, and I don't mean that as in people being individuals. I just mean that there's a lot of selfishness here. There's a lot of self-centeredness. People don't really care that much about other people around them anymore. For the most part, I would say, and that's how I feel about my own country, and just in general. I think people have gotten worse over time. I think kindness has kind of gone out the window, generosity has gone out the window. People trying to be decent and nice has kind of gone out the window for the most part, as far as I can tell. People are more crass these days. People are more rude. They're more crude about certain things they talk about, the way that they talk about things. There's not. One time the working classes actually had a bit of class about them, but like these days, I just find that people are just kind of repulsive and just inconsiderate and ignorant and really dull and uninteresting. But that's just, I don't know. That's just me. And, I realise here sometimes that I've kind of flip-flopped between different things in my videos. And I do apologise sometimes where I kind of go off the topic a little bit and kind of jump back into it or move on to something else. But, that's just kind of how the way I think, really. It's just how I am as a person. I probably should work on it. But I think overall my fears for the future are really about where humanity is likely to go, because I think as far as I can see, we are definitely heading towards biotech, the very beginnings of biotech, a biotech-like species in my lifetime. I think that's pretty much guaranteed to happen. And maybe I'd say probably within a century, we may start to see a kind of like cyborg-like species become a kind of reality in some way. It may even happen within the next couple of decades. Who knows, the way robotics are advancing, and the endless push for kind of AI consciousness, as far as I can see, where that's becoming more of a dominant thing. But I just think it's really scary. I think we're heading towards a really frightening future. An incredibly interesting one, but also potentially an extremely dangerous one as far as the average person's concerned. The elites, the people with wealth, the people that have got their hands in the game kind of thing, they've got nothing to worry about, I don't think. I mean, there'll always be a need for workers. There's always going to be a need for the ants of the colony, the workers of the hive kind of thing. I'm not saying that everyone's going to be obliterated off the planet or anything anytime soon, but I think at some point there will probably have to be some kind of a culling of some sort. There's just no way that we can sustain ourselves as a species with, what is it now, something like 6? Is it something like 6 billion people on the planet? I think I don't know if I'm right about that, but there's just no way. It's not going to happen. There's just no way that is sustainable in the long term future, in my view. What do you think? Let me know in the comments if you agree with me or not. There's no doubt that surveillance online is becoming a much more invasive. It just feels to me like we're being monitored more and more every few years. It's like, I don't know. It's like, just feels to me the rise of CCTV, the rise of the internet, the rise of smartphones and AI and social media. I don't know. It just feels like to me it's almost like it's been engineered. It's almost like it's been. If it's not engineered, certainly there are a lot of people that have jumped on board with how to exploit people using it and how it could be used to manipulate people, control people, persuade people, de-persuade people, control certain narratives, whether that's about the environment or, any kind of number of controversial issues, especially politics. And obviously, especially regarding technology and where its suspicions around where it's at and where it's going. But I also think, just in general, that humanity is kind of just kind of degrading over time. It just seems to be more and more instability in societies these days. And as time goes on, with climate change, obviously there'll be a lot of people that want to leave their homeland because it'll become too dangerous, it'll become too unstable, it'll just reach a stage, I think, where you just won't be able to live in certain places anymore. And so those people will start to migrate and look for other places to live in, and then that will cause. There are so many things that are going to end up, I believe, eventually, that probably will end up collapsing humanity, I think. Now, whether that's within a couple of centuries, 1,000 years, I don't know, but I suspect it'll be within a few centuries. If things are going the way that I see them in my head, then I really do fear that I sometimes this was something I thought about last night, that we are essentially like the last generations of people. The next few, those are us that are alive, and those that are going to come in probably the next, I'd say the next two decades probably. Us and them we will be the last generations of pure humans, pure biological humans. And after that, I would say in the next 50 years, we will start to see biotech humans become a reality. I don't know. Just something that I can kind of foresee happening, really. It makes sense because people, I think we are being deliberately teased, if you like, into buying into all of this stuff very, very gradually, very slowly, very subtly. We're being manipulated. We're being sold things that we're told will help us with boredom, entertainment, and learning, and give us a better quality of life. And that, even though that might be true to a point, I also think that these things are going to be used for I think they're going to be used in ways that aren't actually conducive to healthy humans, healthy societies. I think they're going to be used to essentially, over time, push people into getting on board with biotech, and the reason for that is that those people would be able to be controlled more. We're heading towards a society, I really genuinely believe, of further and further dystopia. We're heading towards more authoritarianism a more modern sense, the jackboot on someone's face of the future is not going to be that of another human being. It's going to be that of a robot. It's going to be that of some biotech machinery. It'll be get in line or we'll shut you off kind of thing. Get in line, get on board with it, or you'll be removed from the system. Literally, you'll be turned off. You'll be unplugged. You'll become a non-entity because everything will be attached. And I think this digital ID thing is just one small step. One small step for man, one giant leap for robotics. No, I'm just kidding. It'll be one small step in the direction of basically post-human society. That's what we're heading towards. I'm pretty sure of it. I can't say for certain, but I'm pretty confident that's where we're going. It's not, and then all the other stuff aside, like I said, the breakdown of traditional societies, culture, political instability. I just think that we're getting more and more disconnected from ourselves. We're getting more and more disconnected from each other. We're getting massively overstimulated by engagement online now, and just, how much time do you spend going through YouTube and your favourite social media sites, and you're just find yourself wasting hours and hours, and you just think, what am I doing with my life here? And it just drags you in, it gets you in, it's an addiction. It really is. And that isn't that, because remember the old days when you just used to go on YouTube, you might watch like a couple of videos and that was it, and you go off it and you didn't really think about it. But now it's like the algorithms, like they keep you in it, they keep you there, they grab your attention and it keeps you in it to keep, I'll just watch this one more, I'll just watch this, I'll just watch that, I'll just watch this. And then you see how many videos have you saved, how many playlists have you got, and the thing, it's not how automatic it is. Like if you just like something, and also on Twitter, on X as well, it's that, like how quick you are to just like something without even really thinking about it. Like that's deliberate. That's you've been deliberately manipulated, molded, and that's what's happening. I think that's what's happening to humanity. We're being manipulated. We're being molded. We're being prepared for the dreams of globalists and fucking tech giants and fucking psychopathic capitalists. I just think that we're as a species pretty much fucked. I'm sorry to say that. I don't come here with bearing gifts of positivity and hope. Really, for the most part, I'm sorry to say, I really don't. I just think that I think we're walking into our own demise as a species. Whether that's beneficial for the planet and everything else that lives on it, I suspect it's probably a good thing, but in many ways anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I do think that the future we're being sold is dishonest. At best, is dishonest and disingenuous, and at worst, is probably very malicious. I don't know. I just don't think we're gonna. I don't think there's a future for the average person. I really don't, because even if we were to say that this hypothetical universal basic income thing became a reality, it's like, well, how long is that gonna work out for before governments, something happens and there's not enough money in the economy anymore, or they just get tired of. And what's that going to be attached to? Is that going to be attached to your digital ID? So where your banking's attached to it, everything about you is attached to it. And so if you don't meet one slight little thing that you get punished on, there's like some kind of penalty system, or a system where after so many strikes you basically just get taken out of the system. You no longer exist. I don't know. It's just this. I just have so many questions and so many concerns about where we're heading. My only hope is that we can kind of come together, collectivize, and build up our communities in some way again. Because I think if we don't, and we don't stabilize politics, we don't try to find a balance between renewable energy sources and better sustainable energy, then I think we're basically finished as a society. Whether that's naturally or whether it's a deliberate plan to get rid of a few million or a few billion people on the planet, it would certainly save a lot of resources if you think about it. So it wouldn't surprise me if in some way the elites want a seriously deadly, Black Death like pandemic or something at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that does happen. So I really do think that we are we're heading towards a place and time where morality is breaking down, ethics are breaking down, civility is breaking down, and we are heading towards transhumanism. There's no doubt about that. We're heading towards, but only for those that have got money, only for those that will have. They will only have the ability to do it. For everybody else, it'll just be a case of, you're fucked, basically. You're on your own, good luck to you. And that's it. So, my concerns of the future are really about where do humans actually fit into it? Where does the average human fit into that world? How will we survive? Like, what will we do if we're not working anymore, or if we're living in a very flexible world of employment, which is kind of where we're at now anyway. Where do we? What will humanity be then? What will humanity be of the future? Are we heading towards a new world order? What are we heading towards? Because as far as I can tell, we're definitely heading towards mass unemployment on scales we've never seen before. We're probably heading towards pandemics in the future, diseases, bacteria that will probably wipe out, whether they come out of labs or they're just natural parts of the environment. I don't know, but I fear that there will probably end up there'll be some justification, or there'll be something that happens, and either it'll be deliberate or it'll be seen as. It won't kind of be stopped quickly because it'll be convenient. It'll be in the short term it'll cost a lot of money, but in the long term it will have saved a lot of money. Will have saved a lot of resources. And I don't know, man. It's just something that I'm just very, very, very concerned about. I don't know what else to say about the whole thing, really. I just think that we're walking into... We're already one step in the grave, as far as I can tell, as a society. And I don't think it's getting any better. I think people are just buying into things and they don't really realise what they're walking into. They're so quick to jump on bandwagons, they're so quick to give up their freedoms and autonomy for the sake of technology and the future, modernity. And I don't really think that people truly understand the potential consequences of all this stuff. I just fear that we're... I don't know. I just get the impression that we're heading towards extremely, extremely unstable times, and more than likely, a lot of people are going to die because of this. A lot of people are going to suffer because of this. And eventually that same technology that people bought into will be the same thing that ends up ruining their lives, will be the same thing that ends up putting them out of jobs, ruining their sense of identity, their sense of community, their sense of worth in the world. And it's like, how is that going to work? I mean, seriously, like, when we are in a position where most people no longer go to work, where most people have a basic income, like, well, what do you do at that point? I mean, what, everyone's going to become artists, are they? I mean, are we going to end up in a situation where we essentially we just end up with black market economies? Are we heading towards a social credit system? Because that's where I see things going. Increasingly, there's more and more of the sense of we've got to centralise everything. We've got to have utter control over every single aspect of people's lives. And not just that, issues of data concerns with you've seen it in recent years with social media and the fact that people can't seem to drag themselves away from the internet these days, especially the younger people, the younger generations, and obviously the threat of things like deep fakes. And I've already seen some of it on YouTube. We're seeing it. There's a lot more of this convincing AI stuff coming about now on YouTube and Facebook. I think I mentioned it 2 videos back, if I'm not mistaken. We're seeing a lot more fragmentation on social media, especially on X, with regards to political sort of echo chambers and things, left versus the right on everything. It's just becoming a really toxic landscape. People don't seem to want to come together anymore. It's just we live in a world now of I'm right, you're wrong. That's it. No maturity, no ability to agree to disagree, no ability to put one's differences aside and come together and try to find some mutual ground, some common mutual agreements on things. I think in terms of the general population, I would say. And just the general impacts on just everything and anything really about the outside world. I just think things are breaking down. People are becoming more nationalistic and populist these days, and I understand where it's all coming from. But what they don't realise is that they're also being sold a lot of lies and being manipulated and used for power, for gain, for control, which will also end up affecting their lives. But having said that, the opposite of all that stuff isn't the answer either. So, we're gonna. I don't know. I just think that we just seem to be in such a fucking mess in this world now. We seem to be in such a state of. I've never really felt like this about the world before. It's like I have hope still. I have a degree of optimism, but like as the time's going on, like it's dwindling. I'm feeling less and less secure about the world. I'm feeling less and less optimistic about the future. And who knows just how many geopolitical issues is gonna, obviously with migration being one of those parts of it, will become severe issues over the next couple of decades, especially as biodiversity starts to collapse in many places like obviously South America and Africa and parts of Asia, places we rely heavily on. I'm not going to sit in line and say it keeps me up at night, but these are just things I think a lot of people are feeling these worries right now. People are really concerned about the potential, the moral implications, the ethical implications of biotechnology and genetics, genetical engineering, and the potential for AI warfare, and authorities using AI and automation, the potential issues of space exploration, and kind of this sense that we're kind of going to end up neglecting our planet for the sake of it, and kind of getting rid of some of the resources in this fight towards colonizing our own kind of solar system to some extent, and then obviously finding life elsewhere in the galaxy or nearby in nearby star systems. As I've said, endless issues surrounding surveillance. And I just think over time, I think humans are becoming less skilled, really, less interesting, less able to communicate, less able to form healthy relationships with each other. The threat of cybersecurity stuff, that's a real concern, especially when it comes to things like digital ID, the use of AI as well, So there are a hell of a lot of problems, I think, that are likely to. And when we, if it's, I'll just say this and then I'm going to go. But if we do reach a point where, whether it's 20, 30 years from now, I don't know when we're going to start to feel the real impact of all this stuff. But I imagine it'll be within a few decades. I think, to me, I think really that point. That will be the point where we will start to then see massive increases in mental health issues. And I just don't think that's the direction. I think the direction we are heading towards, in basically to sum up what I've been trying to say here, is not the direction we should be heading towards. But then again, I'm nobody. I'm nothing. I'm a nobody on YouTube. I can't influence the future. I can't change anybody's minds. I don't have any money, so I can't. I can't. Who am I? And I don't mean that as in like I'm being apathetic. I just mean just being realistic about it. But at the very least, at least I can raise my concerns on a platform like this. It's all that's the only voice I've got. It's the only form of expression I've got, and so that's what I do. So anyway, that's basically my angle on it all, and I do think we are heading very swiftly towards a post-human world. Probably in my lifetime, probably by the time I'm an old man, a lot of the things I've talked about in this video here will probably become a reality, and I think we're heading towards collapse, basically, in many respects. I'm sorry to say. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on another one soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.